Behind the sweet country music lie ragged breaths, dozens of endless surgeries and farewells choked in the chest. Look at Toby Keith. A cowboy once as towering as a monument, now swallowed by an oversized outfit that hangs off his frail frame. He fights to keep his voice from trembling, masking the devastation of the stomach cancer clawing at his insides during the very final performance of his life. That agony stretches all the way to the bedside of Joey Feek, where a mother, now little more than skin and bones, uses her last ounce of strength to pull her baby girl with Down syndrome close to her heart. One final kiss, one eternal farewell, as the Reaper stands waiting right at the doorstep. Don't look away, because what follows is the powerful journey of 20 country music legends battling illness. Before we begin, please leave a heart to remember the voices that have made history in this genre. 1. Toby Keith, the anthem of a fading warrior. The dazzling lights of Las Vegas in late 2023 did not welcome the burly cowboy superstar the world was used to. Instead, the audience fell into a hushed silence at the sight of a man swallowed by a cavernous jacket, his face gaunt and his eyes sunken deep. That was Toby Keith. Stomach cancer had ravaged his body, gnawing away at his flesh, but it could never touch the indomitable will of a true warrior. For months, he endured brutal rounds of chemotherapy and agonizing cramps that made simply standing a monumental feat. Yet, the moment the microphone turned on, that same man poured out a voice so thunderous and proud, it was as if no darkness had ever touched him. He sang as if he were breathing in the air of music for the very last time, each note a bullet fired back at a cruel fate. Below the stage, the crowd wept, not out of pity, but out of profound reverence for a soul burning its brightest before the embers finally dimmed. In early 2024, the world of country music fell silent as the news of his passing broke. Toby Keith lived and died exactly as he sang, strong, unyielding, and fierce with pride. He left this world only after fulfilling every last promise to his fans, leaving behind a vast void that no one can ever fill. But while Toby's battle was the heroic head-on confrontation of a grown man, the tragedy that follows hits us in a completely different way. A tender, yet soul-crushing pain born from the deepest instincts of a mother. 2. Joey Feek, A Mother's Farewell Kiss. Before the shadows of illness gathered, Joey Feek was the brightest blossom of pure country music. On stage, standing beside her husband, as the duo Joey plus Rory, she captivated hearts with a voice as clear as morning dew and a radiant, soulful beauty. Whenever she sang, the audience didn't just hear music. They felt the breath of the countryside, the warmth of family, and an unwavering faith. Yet, at the very height of her fame, fate struck a cruel blow, turning her life into one of the most tragic ballads in music history. A small room in Indiana during March 2016 was tinged with sorrow, yet overflowing with love. On her hospice bed, Joey lay a frail, delicate silhouette, ravaged by end-stage cervical cancer. With all treatments failing and death standing at the doorstep, Joey still clung to every final second. She wasn't waiting for a miracle for herself. She was merely gathering her last ounce of strength to love her baby girl for one more moment. The image of Joey, her gaunt, trembling hands clutching little Indiana, a precious child, with Down syndrome to her chest, became the ultimate symbol of heartbreak. She knew she had to leave soon, knowing that from then on, there would be no one to sing her lullabies or shield the child who had faced so much since birth. In shallow, broken breaths, she gave her daughter one final kiss, a kiss carrying the fading warmth of life and a tearful entrustment to the husband she left behind. She passed away at age 40, just as spring began to bloom, leaving behind a love story that makes millions of hearts ache in remembrance. A mother's passing while her child is still small is a scar that never heals, a haunting note reminding us of the fragility of human life. But while Joey fought to live for love, other legends allowed the dark corners of life and solitude to slowly consume their souls, leading to an inevitable end like the next king of heartbreak. 3. George Jones, the final stop for a lonely wanderer. Under the brilliant lights of the Grand Ole Opry, George Jones was once the gold standard of country vocals. Whenever he sang, listeners felt as if all the world's sorrows were captured in every soulful trill and dip of his voice. He stood there, elegant and authoritative, holding tens of thousands of fans in breathless silence with timeless classics like He Stopped Loving Her Today. He was called the King of Broken Hearts, a man who could transform pain into an art form so beautiful it moved the soul to tears. Yet, behind that glamour was a life ravaged by the demons of alcohol and tobacco. The nickname No-Show Jones was born from the many times he was too intoxicated to even step onto the stage. For decades, his lungs and respiratory system bore the weight of thick smoke and bitter spirits. By his final years, the image of a powerful legend was replaced by a frail old man struggling for every breath. In 2013, George Jones was hospitalized with a high fever and severe respiratory failure. This time, the King didn't just miss a show, he missed life itself. The wreckage of a harsh lifestyle caused his lungs to collapse entirely. He passed away at 81, leaving behind a massive legacy but also a haunting warning about the price of self-destruction. Though George Jones departed after a long journey of highs and lows, his passing carried the hue of old age, a stark contrast to the shock of a young talent extinguished right at the peak of his glory. 4. Keith Whitley, the long sleep of a half-finished talent. If there were ever a man who combined the sweetness of music with the dashing looks of a leading man, it was Keith Whitley. On stage, he was a true magnet, mesmerizing fans with deep, soulful eyes and a voice so tender it could melt the hardest of hearts. In just a few short years, Keith rose to become one of the industry's most influential artists, racking up consecutive chart toppers. Every time he performed, the world seemed to stand still. People believed he was destined to be an immortal titan of country music. But tragedy struck on a May morning in 1989 when Keith was only 33. Chronic alcoholism had silently shadowed him like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. Just the night before he passed, he was still talking to his family, promising a bright future and a serious plan for sobriety to protect his happiness with his beloved wife. Yet, that sleep became eternal. Keith was found having passed away from acute alcohol poisoning with a blood alcohol level that was horrifyingly high. His sudden departure was a violent jolt to the hearts of millions. People grieved for a talent in its prime, for the songs that never took shape, and for a life stolen by the vulnerability to temptation. The death of Keith Whitley was a sudden and brutal fracture, a pain without warning, the polar opposite of the slow, lingering farewell of another legend lost to the creeping shadows of memory. 5. Glen Campbell, a farewell in the shadows of memory. To speak of Glen Campbell is to summon the image of a multi-talented wanderer, a man who possessed not only a voice as smooth as velvet, but also the hands of a master guitarist. On stage, he was a burst of energy, his radiant face and sun-drenched smile forever paired with his legendary rhinestone cowboy guitar. He was the perfect bridge between country and pop, an artist with no distance between himself and his audience, turning every performance into a warm, vibrant musical feast. Glen's brilliance lay not just in his technique, but in a zest for life that beamed through every lyric. And then, the darkness arrived under the name of Alzheimer's. This cruel disease began to gnaw away at every fragment of memory, every song lyric, and even the faces of his most beloved kin. But instead of hiding, Glen made a courageous choice: to embark on one final tour, to say goodbye, while his mind still held a glimmer of clarity. In those final days on stage, the world saw a Glen Campbell who sometimes forgot the words, who sometimes looked bewildered between chords, yet whose hand still glided over the strings with a divine instinct. It was a farewell that spanned years, painful, yet profoundly beautiful. He passed away in 2017 after a decade-long battle against the shadows of oblivion. Glen lost his memory, but his music kept his soul alive in the hearts of fans like a lighthouse that never dims. Glen Campbell's resilience touched the hearts of every generation, yet not everyone was fortunate enough to have such a bittersweet goodbye, especially when their bodies were ravaged by physical agony lasting for decades. 6. Tammy Wynette, an anthem of heart-wrenching pain. Hailed as the First Lady of country music, Tammy Wynette once stood at the top of the world, a vision of aristocratic beauty with a voice powerful enough to soothe millions of broken hearts. On stage, she was the ultimate symbol of fortitude, the woman who gave voice to the inner lives of wives and mothers through her anthem, "Stand By Your Man." Every high note she reached carried a sob, a raw emotion so authentic that people believed she held the very key to strength itself. Yet, few knew that behind the glamorous gowns and radiant smiles was a body being torn apart by horrific physical pain. Tammy endured over 30 major surgeries for stomach and liver complications. She lived with chronic agony, so severe that she became dependent on potent painkillers just to step onto the stage. There were nights she sang while her body was in a state of violent protest, yet for the sake of her fans, she stood firm until the final note. In 1998, this resilient woman drew her last breath on a sofa in her home, taken by a pulmonary embolism and the sheer exhaustion of a body that had grown too weary. She died in silence, leaving behind infinite sorrow for a magnificent life riddled with painful scars. Tammy Wynette's passing marked the end of a life of sacrifice, but fate can be so cruel as to pick the most joyous of days to steal the breath of another legend. 7. Merle Haggard, A Cruel Destiny on a Birthday. If anyone represented the soul of the American working class, it was surely Merle Haggard. On stage, he was an uncrowned king, a lonesome fugitive, with a rugged charisma and songs that breathed the heavy air of everyday life. Merle's voice was unadorned. It was raw and sincere, much like his own journey. A life that rose from poverty and waywardness to become a titan of country music. When he stood under the spotlight, tens of thousands saw their own reflections in him, finding solace for the hardships of the human struggle. But life, in all its irony, reserved its cruelest script for him. In his final years, Merle battled a persistent bout of pneumonia. Despite his fading health, he never stopped dreaming of the stage, never stopped yearning to connect with his audience. On the 6th of April 2016, the very day of his 79th birthday, Merle bid the world farewell. Instead of a celebration, his family and fans were met with soul-crushing news. He passed away at the exact moment he completed a full circle of life, leaving behind unfinished ballads. His death carried a sense of fated sorrow, a painful coincidence that brings a lump to the throat of anyone who remembers a man who gave everything until the very last minute. Merle Haggard's pain ended in the arms of his loved ones on a special day. But out there, other stars passed away in a chilling silence in a foreign place. 8. Charlie Rich, A Journey with No Return. Charlie Rich, nicknamed the Silver Fox, was once the center of every gaze with his elegant appearance and a soulful, melancholic musical spirit. On stage, he was a master of emotion, perfectly blending country with jazz and soul. Hits like Behind Closed Doors made him one of the most beloved artists of the 70s. Audiences were captivated by his calm, poised demeanor and the air of an artist who always knew how to command the moment, bringing a rare sense of peace to his listeners. Yet, the final chapter of his life unfolded in a way no one could have predicted. During a road trip with his wife in 1995, Charlie began to feel weary, plagued by a dry cough. They stopped at a modest roadside motel in Louisiana to rest. And it was in that unfamiliar motel room that the Silver Fox passed away forever in his sleep, the victim of a blood clot that traveled to his lungs. There were no stage lights, no applause from thousands, only the absolute silence of a lonely summer night. The contrast between his towering fame and a death in a roadside motel leaves fans heartbroken over the fragility of fate, a departure as quiet as his own humble nature. Charlie Rich's solitary death left a silent void, much like the way another giant chose to hide away to face the end of his days. 9. Don Williams, The Seclusion of the Gentle Giant. To mention Don Williams is to evoke a warm, mellow voice as gentle as a fresh breeze blowing through a vast cornfield. On stage, he needed no flashy movements or elaborate gimmicks. He only needed a wooden stool, a guitar, and an honest soul. His presence brought a sense of safety, an absolute trust that made listeners feel as though they were conversing with a beloved father or uncle. He was cherished by the world not just for his music, but for his integrity and a life lived far from the hollow lure of fame. But when emphysema began to ravage his lungs, the gentle giant chose to step back behind the velvet curtain. He didn't want the world to see him weakened. He didn't want pity to overshadow his music. Don Williams spent his final years in the stillness of his private home, facing increasingly heavy bouts of breathlessness. He fought his battle in total privacy, maintaining the quiet dignity of a true artist. In 2017, he passed away peacefully at 78, having given every ounce of his sweetness to the world. His passing was as soft as the way he lived, leaving behind a lingering ache in the hearts of those who loved a voice that never knew how to lie. Don Williams' life was a quiet, low note, a peaceful yet heavy departure, starkly different from the tragic irony of a humorous artist whose greatest weapon was stolen by a cruel disease. 10. Roger Miller, When the Laughter Faded into Pain. On stage, Roger Miller was a genius. Clown with a mischievous glint in his eye, a man who could make an entire hall explode in laughter with just an improvised lyric or a quirky gesture. He didn't just sing, he played with music, gifting the world optimistic melodies like King of the Road. Roger's brilliance lay in his boundless energy, where every word he uttered carried a wit and a zest for life so intense it made audiences believe that sorrow had no place in his world. But fate reserved a cruelly ironic ending for the artist. After decades of being immersed in tobacco smoke, Roger Miller was diagnosed with lung and throat cancer. It was a heartless death sentence for a man who lived by his voice and his humor. The disease slowly gnawed away at his greatest gift, turning his witty jokes into heavy, agonizing gasps for air. In his final days, the man who once made millions laugh lived in the haunting silence of a hospital bed, where he no longer had the strength to speak a single clear word. He passed away at 56, leaving behind a hushed void where boisterous laughter once echoed. Fans grieve for him not just for the lost talent, but for the agony of seeing a joyful soul forced to leave this world in a tormented silence. Roger Miller's pain ended in stillness, but for another legend, the farewell took place just as he had reached the final peak of his glory. 11. Charley Pride, a star extinguished in the pandemic storm. Charley Pride stood on stage with a gentle smile and a smooth voice that shattered every racial barrier to become an immortal icon of country music. He was more than just a singer. He was a source of pride. The man who proved that music is a universal language with no borders. Every time he appeared, the audience was bathed in the warmth and sincerity of a man who spent his life laboring to spread love through every sweet melody. In November 2020, Charley Pride made his final appearance at the CMA Awards to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, a magnificent moment honoring his legendary career. Yet, no one could have guessed it was a final goodbye. Only weeks after that emotional night, the COVID-19 pandemic stole the breath of the 86-year-old artist. His death sent shockwaves of grief and outrage through fans worldwide. It was devastating that a man who spent his life overcoming the harshest prejudices finally fell to an invisible virus just as he received his highest honor. Fans wept for him, a grandfather of country music, passing away in the isolation of a quarantine ward, no final rounds of applause, only the lingering ache of a turbulent era. Charley Pride passed away in the mourning of an entire generation. Yet there were other artists who chose to leave the spotlight early, only to face the end in total solitude. 12. Holly Dunn, a blossom fading behind the curtain of seclusion. Holly Dunn was once the golden girl of 80s country music, possessing a voice brimming with emotion and songs that celebrated the profound love of family. On stage, she shone with a sweet beauty and a rare sincerity that made anyone listening feel as though they had returned home to the warm embrace of loved ones. Holly's brilliance did not lie in flamboyance, but in her ability to touch the simplest emotional chords, leaving a deep imprint on fans' hearts through her classic hit, Daddy's Hands. After deciding to walk away from the spotlight to seek peace in painting, Holly thought she had finally found the quiet life she desired. However, ovarian cancer struck like a violent storm, shattering that tranquility when she was only 59. The disease progressed so rapidly and aggressively that it quickly withered a woman once full of life. In her final days, Holly Dunn faced ultimate physical pain in the hushed silence of hospice care. It is heartbreaking to know that the artist who once sang such warm lyrics about family had to spend her final hours in a lonely battle against death. She passed away, leaving behind unfinished paintings and old melodies that still echo, reminding us of a blossom that chose to fade in silence rather than burn out under the blinding glare of fame. Holly Dunn's passing left a void of regret, much like the way another aging warrior chose to face the grim truth with a final cup of coffee and ultimate serenity. 13. Ray Price, The Last Cup of Coffee and the Resilience of a Gentleman. At the age of 87, after more than 6 decades of standing under the spotlight with the elegant poise of a gentleman, Ray Price faced his death sentence from pancreatic cancer with the utmost composure. For the 50-plus generation, his voice was not just music, it was their vibrant youth. Instead of choosing brutal rounds of chemotherapy that would destroy his body in a cold hospital room, Ray made a decision that moved millions to tears. He chose to go home. In those final days, the applause was gone, replaced only by the sound of the wind whispering through the porch. He sat there, quietly savoring one last cup of coffee, gazing at the sky he had loved his entire life. He did not want his fans to remember him as a frail old man surrounded by oxygen tubes, but as a Ray Price who remained proud until his very last breath. When he closed his eyes in the arms of his devoted wife, an entire musical era seemed to close with him, leaving behind a profound respect for a man who mastered his own fate, even in his darkest moments. Ray Price's serenity is a lesson in courage, but for a soul who had only just found the light again like the next artist, death carried the bitter aftertaste of a story cut short. 14. Doug Supernaw, a cruel death sentence at the threshold of revival. For the generations of the past, Doug Supernaw was the voice of fathers and husbands through his soul-stirring ballad, I Don't Call Him Daddy. His life was a somber song of highs and lows, marked by stumbles that seemed impossible to recover from. Yet, in 2019, just as fans were rejoicing to see him return to the stage with a radiant smile and a fierce determination to rebuild his life, fate dealt a lethal blow. Simultaneously, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung and bladder cancer. It is heartbreaking that a man who had just found the strength to stand back up was struck down by a double death sentence. In just 1 year, the once healthy body of the Texas cowboy was ravaged without mercy. Fans watched in sorrow as their beloved artist fought a hopeless battle through relentless treatments while the seeds of death spread through his entire frame. He passed away while plans for a new album still sat on blank paper, leaving behind an eternal ache for a revival that never had the chance to bloom. Doug's passing is a haunting reminder of the fragility of hope, where effort sometimes cannot triumph over the cold cruelty of nature. The pain of the unfinished story named Doug Supernaw leaves us stunned. But the tragedy of the next artist lies in the silent erosion of time and a decade of lingering agony. 15. Eddie Arnold, the quiet decline of the Tennessee plowboy. Eddie Arnold was a companion to the 50-plus generation through many sleepless nights, offering comfort with his smooth, soothing vocals. Throughout his 90 years of life, he gave every ounce of his sweetness to music, but few knew that his final years were a long journey through absolute pain. Severe arthritis turned the hands that once glided over guitar strings into dry, curled bones. Every tiny movement became a form of torture for the aging artist. To witness a monument who once shone so brightly on stage, now confined to a bed, his body withered, and his immune system exhausted, is a haunting image for anyone who loved him. He did not pass from a sudden illness, but rather the gradual wilting of a blossom that had bloomed its heart out. In his final days, Eddie lived in the weariness of age, his breath thinning with every agonizing ache in his joints. He passed away just 2 weeks before his 90th birthday, ending a century of glory but also of profound physical hardship. His departure was as gentle as sleep, yet it left fans grieving for a talented soul whose body was torn down by time without mercy. The passing of Eddie Arnold followed the laws of nature. But out there, other stars chose to depart in absolute silence, turning their disappearance into an unspoken mystery. 16. Billy Thundercloud, fading away silently like the clouds. If there were an artist who carried the pride of the great wilderness within him, it was Billy Thundercloud. On stage, he was the leader of the Chieftones, a son of the Gitcan Nation with a powerful voice and fiery songs of indigenous pride. The older generation surely cannot forget the image of a strong artist, always radiant in traditional regalia, bringing a fresh and vibrant breeze to 70s country music. He didn't just sing, he told the story of his roots with every ounce of his passion. Yet, the final chapter for this warrior was a somber note that leaves one breathless with sorrow. After a brutal stroke, his greatest weapon, his voice was stolen, replaced by the struggle for every spoken word. Beyond that, stomach and esophageal cancer continued to close in, eroding his already depleted body in Florida. What breaks fans' hearts the most was Billy's final wish. He requested no funeral, no public announcement, and no memorial service. He chose to vanish into the void in absolute silence, leaving the spotlight behind to face death in chilling solitude. Fans only learned the news after he was already gone, leaving a vast emptiness and the haunting question of the lonely final days of a legend. The mysterious disappearance of Billy Thundercloud leaves a haunting void, but the death of the next artist was a classic tragedy, unfolding on the very road to glory. 17. Hank Williams, The Fateful Ride and a Broken Heart. To speak of Hank Williams is to speak of the saint of country music, the man who laid the foundation for an entire musical era. On stage, he was a lonely genius, possessing the ability to write lyrics that touched the deepest core of human suffering. Though only in his 20s, Hank stood on a mountain of fame. Every performance was a historic event that left tens of thousands weeping. His brilliance was short but blinding like a meteor, promising an infinite future for American country music. But that star flickered out on a freezing New Year's Eve in 1953, right in the backseat of a Cadillac rolling toward a performance. At age 29, while the world waited for his voice, Hank Williams passed away from acute heart failure after years of abusing alcohol and painkillers to cope with a congenital spinal condition. The image of the young driver looking back to find his legend cold and gone is a detail that haunts generations of fans. He died in the loneliness of a long journey, with a heart too weary from pressure and physical pain. Hank's death was not just a loss of music, but the collapse of a soul too sensitive for a harsh world. Fans mourn for a genius who paid too high a price for glory, departing while life still held so many unfinished dreams. The tragic end of Hank Williams has become a sorrowful legend, but that ache is multiplied when hope is extinguished the very moment it is lit, as in the case of the next artist. 18. Dan Seals, A Candle Extinguished After the Final Hope. Dan Seals was once the warmth that soothed the hearts of fans through the sweet ballads of the ADS. On stage, he possessed the aura of a gentle, unassuming artist, always using music to connect kindred spirits. Audiences loved him for his simplicity and lack of pretension. Every lyric he uttered brought a rare sense of peace. Dan was not just a star. He was a soulmate to an entire generation, walking with them through life's highs and lows with the tenderest of melodies. Tragedy struck when Dan was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2008. Instead of surrendering, he bravely faced rounds of chemotherapy and decided to undergo a stem cell transplant, hoping to keep living, keep singing. There were moments when doctors optimistically announced the surgery a success, providing a flicker of hope for his family and fans. Yet, that joy was short-lived. The disease returned with redoubled cruelty, striking him down just as he dared to dream of returning to the stage. Dan passed away at 61, right beside his brother's final resting place, ending a battle that was as resilient as it was heartbreaking. Fans mourn him not just for his illness, but for that moment of hope so ruthlessly snatched away, leaving a lingering ache for an artist who fought to the very end just to stay with his music one more time. Dan Seals' pain is a testament to the cruelty of fate. But for artists who have dedicated their lives to their craft, death sometimes arrives just as they reach for an illusory miracle. 19. Jim Ed Brown, Faith Flickers Out in a Musical Paradise. For over 6 decades, Jim Ed Brown was the embodiment of elegance and excellence on the Grand Ole Opry stage. The 50-plus generation surely cannot forget the harmony of his voice alongside the Brown sisters or his sweet later duets. With his always polished appearance, gentle smile, and professional demeanor, he was more than a singer. He was a familiar radio host, a confidant through the airwaves for millions of families. Jim Ed's brilliance lay in his endurance, his ability to keep the flame of traditional music burning bright amidst the changing tides of time. Yet, the tragedy of the aging artist began with a cruel, false hope. When diagnosed with lung cancer in 2014, Jim Ed Brown faced it with an incredible spirit of optimism. After exhausting treatments, doctors announced his cancer was in remission, bringing a burst of joy to his family and fans. He believed he had won. He dreamed of the dazzling performances ahead. But only months later, death returned with redoubled aggression. The cancer relapsed and metastasized at lightning speed, ravaging his already weakened frame. It is agonizing to know that the artist passed away just as he touched a miracle that wasn't there, leaving a haunting ache for the irony of fate. He drew his last breath at 81, leaving a vast void on the Opry stage and in the hearts of those who loved a voice that never knew weariness. The death of Jim Ed Brown is a somber note for optimism extinguished, but the final image in this list carries a rugged, soul-crushing beauty of a wandering life. 20. Boxcar Willie, the last train for the rugged drifter. Beneath a tattered hobo outfit, a worn hat, and boots stained with road dust, Boxcar Willie was the iconic symbol of the free and roaming spirit of country music. He didn't need luxury or flamboyant suits. He only needed a train whistle and humble melodies about journeys across America. To his audience, he was the personification of sincerity, a man who stepped out from life's hardships to sing the heart of the poor working class. Boxcar Willie's brilliance lay in that very ruggedness, where every wrinkle on his face told a story of resilience and kindness. But his life's final train stopped at a painful sighting called leukemia. This cruel blood cancer attacked the aging artist from within, making the feet that once roamed every road grow heavy and tired. In his final days in Branson, Missouri, the once legendary drifter lay quietly in a hospital bed, watching his body wither away with every intravenous drip. It is heart-wrenching to imagine a man who always loved movement, who loved the echoing train whistle, now pinned down by agonizing pains in his bone marrow. He passed away at 67, exactly as he wished. A private, simple, and quiet funeral. Boxcar Willie left this world in the clothes of a traveler, leaving a final message that death may steal one's breath, but it can never steal the freedom of a true artist's soul. 20 lives, 20 battles, and 20 tragic final chapters. They spent their youth singing about our pain, yet quietly embraced their own until their very last breath. The stage lights may dim, and these talented forms may return to dust, but the melodies they left behind will forever be a healing balm for the souls who remain. In these journeys of life and death, which artist's story touched your heart the most? Please leave a comment, a flower, or simply the name of your favorite song of theirs so we may honor these legends together. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss our next heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and farewell.